2019 H2Oi weekend, you gotta be here, if not, you're missing out.
Before I begin, let me give you some background information as to what H2Oi is. So it started off as a Volkswagen and Audi car meet. It was hosted in Ocean City, Maryland, and it's basically found at the end of September. The car show grew and grew to the point where there were thousands of people attending the event. There was a lot of good and bad behavior that came with this number of attendees. The car show itself, H2Oi, didn't want to be associated with any of that negative attention. The car show itself would only be held at a certain spot, but because of all the number of people that were there in that city for a couple of days, there was a ton of mayhem. It was seen as a contest to see who could get the most amount of tickets during that weekend. You'd see everything from burnouts to two-stepping to revving to basically everything in between. If you could do something in your car, guaranteed it was ticketed that weekend. It seems to me that it's an event that basically attracts the bystanders more than anything because there's so much attention, there's so many people just sitting on the sidelines watching the crazy cars and the crazy attention that comes in from all over North America. For the past couple years, the car show itself was moved to New Jersey because Ocean City didn't want to be associated with that negative activity. For the next year, because everyone moved to New Jersey, a good amount of people went to the show, but the crazier people wanted to go to the car meet, and that was still hosted in Ocean City. Take a guess where I went. The amount of time, money, and sweat that's put into every single car in the leading months and weeks going to this event is absolutely insane. Heading to H2O is a location that basically brings countless different car enthusiasts all together. So we all basically share the same passion, whether it be stance, whether it be tracking your car, you have a passion for cars, and that's where thousands of people gather. It's a place where you have to drive countless hours, at least for most people. It's an area that you can chill out on the East Coast because it's right on the water, and it's an area for all of us to meet up every year. So this is the last hurrah that we can all the car guys can get together, have some fun, and enjoy ourselves before we have to put our cars and our summer toys away for the winter. Let me tell you about my 2019 H2Oi trip. So our trip started off in Ontario, which is about 1,000 kilometers away from Ocean City, Maryland. Now, I've been working on the car behind me for months leading up to this event. Now, not specifically for this event, but I've been working and wrenching on this car for a heck of a long time now. The weeks leading up to the event were pretty stressful for me because I was not only waiting on car parts to come in for this car, but while I wasn't working on this car, I would work on my other one. I had a good amount of stuff that I wanted to install in the Mini, but because of the time crunch that I was in, I wasn't able to install everything. And thankfully, that was the case because I wanted to install brake pads, rotors, and stainless lines on my Mini, both front and back, and I found out later that it was a great thing that I didn't start working on them because of Canada. The days leading up to the event had me thinking, well, if this thing is gonna be that much of a pain in the butt and I'm gonna be worried about getting the Mini there, should I take my 370Z? I know that that car is not only newer, it's more reliable, there's less crap to go wrong with it, and I know that it's Japanese, so it's not gonna be a problem. But because I got this thing pretty much built and I know a bunch of you guys are gonna be there, I figured, hey, why not? With the intent to avoid the long border wait times, along with the heavy traffic in the larger cities along the way, we left at midnight. We fueled up ourselves and our cars so we'd be good to drive for the long stretch of road ahead of us. We knew that our cars wouldn't be able to make it the entire drive without extra fill-ups, but we managed to make it a decent ways without any problems. Until a suicidal skunk decided it was a good idea to run right across the highway and get crushed by the car ahead of us, which was Dakota's slammed E36 BMW. We exited at the nearest off-ramp and stopped off at a gas station to check out the carnage. Luckily, there wasn't any real damage other than the knife stab into my heart, knowing that I shined up my car prior to leaving. We found some pretty yummy evidence of the skunk all over our front ends. Now, knowing that this could have been worse, we topped off our fuel tank since we were a couple hours into the trek, and we went to go crush some more road. We found it pretty crazy the number of police officers pulling over vehicles. It seemed like wherever we went, we were passing cars stopped by the red and blue. Now this might be me, but I found that there was more of a police presence going into the States at midnight versus here in Ontario. Anyways, the Mini was doing all well given the fact that the car has low profile tires, is lowered on coilovers, and has the trunk loaded up with all of our stuff. The ride comfort wasn't as bad as you'd think, and the noise wasn't unbearable either. The only harsh part of the trip was driving at nighttime on the highway in the dark where there wasn't much going on to keep us awake. Now, a good idea for you guys that if you guys do want to do this trip and you want to leave at midnight, plan to sleep a little bit before leaving so you guys have a little bit of rest. I had some trouble trying to keep my eyes open during those late hours of the night where it's pitch black. However, it was nice to see the night was passing and we were moving on into the next day. Alright guys, so we just got about 10-15 minutes worth of sleep. We're at a gas station. We're about 3 hours away from Ocean City. We're heading up there now. Just gassed up. Ready to go. Squat up. Let's go. Hitting the road once again was short-lived as we ran into some problems along the way. We stopped off at a local used car lot to find a MAF problem on Tyrell's Lexus IS 300. We were able to clean it up and throw it back in the car, given that we didn't have a replacement piece on hand, but it wasn't completely fixed. Fast forwarding a bit, we met up with some other car guys along the way, also heading to Ocean City. The closer that we got to Maryland, the more often we would spot modified cars. Since we were coming from Canada and we didn't have any US phone plans, we decided to buy walkie-talkies, and they were perfect given that we could communicate with each other if we had any problems. Did someone say problems? This time it was my Mini. I had a couple theories about the battery and the alternator, but after we let the battery charge up a bit, we were able to get it started and we hit the road once more. I figured I could fix any problem that we had with the Mini once we got to our destination in Maryland. We arrived at Ocean City Thursday afternoon, and it was pretty tame compared to the havoc that was going to come pouring in the next couple days. We knew that it was going to be a lot crazier in the next days to come because it was still a work day. Also, given that this was my first time attending this unofficial car meet, I had no idea what to expect. I have to say, it was nice getting there early as it allowed us to de-stress from the 14-hour drive and settle into our Airbnb. There were a bunch of us splitting on a condo, which made it both fun and pretty cheap. Now, what I found pretty crazy is that the money that I spent on gas alone was more than what I spent on the accommodations. Pretty nuts. After arriving at our condo, I parked the Mini and put a battery charger on the battery to hopefully fix my electrical problem. While letting the battery charge, we went for a walk along the strip to find some modified cars and a small police presence. But as you can tell, nothing really seemed out of the ordinary. No chaos, no disorder, no nothing to worry about. Now, if you're thinking, is this what H2O was all about? The answer is no, definitely not. Wait for the next couple days to come. The following day, we felt much better as we weren't sleep deprived and we knew that we all made it to Ocean City in one piece. We got up at a decent hour, grabbed some breakfast at Happy Jack's, where we tried some new foods and met some new people. I tried their pumpkin spice pancakes, crab cakes Benedict, and we also met Daniel. Daniel was our server, and not only did we enjoy our time there, but we got talking to him about what he does off of work. Now, I was super relaxed about this place, and it was really chill given everything that's happened so far. Go hit him up and go send him some love on Instagram. After we mucked some food, and considering it was such nice weather out there, we decided to take advantage of where we were. Since Ocean City is exactly what it sounds like, a city that is surrounded by ocean, we figured we couldn't not spend time at the beach. As the day moved on and more people got off work, more modified cars started rolling into the city. We wanted to scope out the area and see what Ocean City had to offer. Now, while we were exploring, we stumbled upon a car wash. We thought it was a prime opportunity to get rid of the skunk bits that were on our cars. Now, I would have loved to have washed my car properly, but given what I had to work with, the wash bay had to make do. As the sun sets and the night falls, the environment in Ocean City completely changed. The clean, modified, static, bagged, riced, and stock cars run the strip. Not only that, the bystanders chill by the sidelines and watch the show.
What you got?
Whatever you can handle.
How many do they have?
There are cops at every intersection trying to control traffic and keep everything docile. However, with the bystanders amping everyone up and shouting for burnouts,
You better spin that shit.
the pavements get covered in rubber. With the sheer volume of aftermarket cars there, if you do something kinda stupid, you're probably not gonna get stopped by the police because there's gonna be other people doing more crazy stuff and they're gonna be getting pulled over instead of you.
Got him.
You have to do something pretty stupid in order to get a fine. When you move off of the main strip, that's where you'll find the uncensored action. Because most of the police are patrolling the strip, it leaves the side streets pretty empty. And you'll find some pretty crazy stuff like this. This couple here also just got engaged right before doing this huge burnout. How crazy is that? When the cops hear the engines revving and they see the tire smoke, they show up in the attempt to break it up. After it looks like the police have done a good job, they leave, but then it starts right back up and the burnouts continue. Now, don't think for a second that the main strip is quiet or relaxed, even though there's a huge presence from the red and blue. Did you know that this weekend is the most ticketed car event in North America? Pretty crazy. This weekend alone, there were more than 1,500 fines and over 120 arrests. On a good note, they were almost all minor infractions, and given the number of motorists on the road, there were only a handful of accidents, which is quite low. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I was under the impression that H2Oi, this car meet, was gonna be something similar to the show, where it's gonna be pretty much an entire stance meet. You're gonna find a ton of camber, a ton of show cars, and nothing really functional. But boy, was I wrong. Even though we did see some of those cars there were still a bunch of tastefully modified cars that put down some serious horsepower. Now, if you're at the right place at the right time, you'll find yourself at a burnout pit, where you'll have car after car doing burnouts until they run out of rubber. You wanna talk about a crazy environment? Now this BPE, burnout, police, evacuate sequence doesn't finish until sunrise. Now when Saturday rolls around, you'll see the same modified cars from the night before, but they won't be doing anything crazy. The day is pretty relaxed as most people are still asleep from being up super late, either being a spectator or causing havoc. On another note, you'll find a ton of people fixing their cars from either something that happened the night before or something that happened along the way to Ocean City. Now I know that since my car was running into electrical problems, I wanted to fix it before heading home the next day. Since I charged my battery during the night and I programmed the ECU for my battery using an app called Carly, I was able to turn my car on and drive. Everything seemed to be okay. Since the handful of my friends that drove down with me stopped and helped me when I needed help, I figured I would lend a hand out when they needed. I drove to a Napa parts store where I bought new spark plugs for Tyrell's car since a new MAF sensor that he bought didn't solve his problems. It was about a half-hour drive out of town and my GPS managed to lead us down some pretty sweet back roads. I brought the parts back to the island and right as I was getting into town, my car died on me. Thankfully, everyone that was down there is there for the same reasons as I am. People are super helpful and you'll find some with proper tools that will be able to help you out. Daniel and I were able to establish all the fuses were okay and there wasn't anything visibly wrong. We jump started my Mini yet again and then tried to limp it back to the condo where I'd try and fix it there. On the way back, it died in the middle of the road and these 5 awesome dudes lent a hand. Now these guys must have left their capes at home because these heroes helped me push my car 3 blocks. I tinkered with the Mini and I came to the conclusion that the alternator was pooched. After I didn't have the tools to do the job and I got quoted over $1,000 to fix it, I figured it'd be a project for later. Back to the fun.
If you guys think that coming to Maryland is gonna be an absolute shit show with cars, burnouts, and cops everywhere, well, yeah, you're right. That's essentially what this is. So it is currently Saturday night, and this is where all the action and all the craziness happens. So we're just walking down the strip, and there's cops everywhere, and there's more modified cars than there is regular traffic. People everywhere, lots of people having a great time. Everywhere, right? And it's just an absolute shit show. And to think the night has only begun. It is not even 9 o'clock, and this is gonna be going on basically until about 4-ish. It's essentially walking, right?
Fuck the police.
The vibes here are nuts. You're essentially walking to one place, you're gonna find people doing burnouts. After the burnouts come, cops come. You then get kicked out, and then it all repeats itself. It's crazy.
We have police officers responding to calls, officers preventing burnouts and shenanigans, the March of the Bananas, and police officers stationed at nearly every single intersection. You can't go 100 yards without seeing another officer. It doesn't matter where you are in the city, you cannot escape these cars. You'll find Korean, German, domestic, Japanese, and every other kind of car down there. Even cars that have Milmas stickers on them. The weirdest thing that you'll find on a Saturday night is a police officer without their lights on. Oops, I spoke too soon. I would 1000% recommend to you guys to check out H2O at least once. It's definitely something that you should knock off your bucket list because there is no car meet, no car show, no nothing that is like it. It's not a car show, it's not a track event, it's a shit show. The Saturday night is so hectic that you physically can't see all the action because the chaos is happening all throughout Ocean City. Even though we attended, there were countless things that we didn't see, like the guy getting hit from the BMW that was trying to do a burnout. Or the other guy that was mouthing off to a cop and got tased. Or the other people that were held at gunpoint because someone called in that they had guns in their car. If I could sum up this weekend in one word, it would be insane. And for that reason, I would 100% attend again. After the Saturday night passes, you're still not home free. We were still 1,000 kilometers away from home with cars that were pretty much band-aided to hopefully get us back in one piece. For my situation, in order to get the Mini home, I either needed to fix the alternator or do something else. Now, I couldn't call AAA to tow my car home because the max amount of kilometers that I could tow it is 1,000. So I had to do some thinking. So what I did is I decided to buy another battery. But I also decided to charge the battery that was in the car so that I could drive my car when the car died, swap batteries, and then, well, at that point, figure out a solution from there. After that second battery died, we were able to knock off a good half of the trip, which is pretty crazy to think that the alternator was not charging anything. I had to get the Mini towed to a local shop because the battery went flat on the highway. We brought it to a Steve Shannon in Pennsylvania, where they were able to charge both of the batteries and they installed one of them back in the car. They didn't even bill me for their service. I insisted on paying because they were so helpful, but they just said to me, "I hope you get home safe." To conserve the limited power supply that the battery had, I was able to program the car to disable the HID lights using Carly. I was also able to pull the fuse for the navigation, so the navigation unit didn't power on. In another attempt to save power, I didn't roll down the windows, I didn't open the sunroof, I didn't have the stereo on, and I tried to prolong that battery as much as possible. Don't ask me how we did it, but after stopping to get it charged, I was able to get from Ocean City to Ontario, which is 1,000 kilometers, with just charging the battery up that one stop. So that's basically 4 batteries in total. Once I got home, I was able to further diagnose my electrical problem and found out it was indeed the alternator that was pooched. This is what the new alternator sounds like when it's spun. And this here is what a faulty alternator sounds like. The service manual recommends putting the car into service mode, which is not only time consuming, but very tedious. Then once you have that done, you then have to also pull the alternator from above. Instead, I removed the serpentine belt, I removed the AC compressor, and then I removed the alternator, which took about half an hour for everything by going underneath the car. The H2Oi meet is more than just a really long drive and some breakdowns. It's a hell of a lot more than that. Yes, you may encounter some issues. Yes, you're gonna be stuck in the car for a long time. But it's an experience that you can't just buy on Amazon like you do with everything else. I was stressing myself out in the beginning because I thought that having a breakdown hundreds of miles away from home would have been the end of the world. Well, in reality, it wasn't that bad. I think it was pretty good. I got some cool stories out of it. It was super fun. And would I do it again? Absolutely. It's been a month since H2O, and I've been thinking to myself, I've been reflecting on it, and there was this one saying that I heard that just, I don't know, it just perfectly fit this situation. It's not about the destination, it's the journey that matters. And I couldn't agree more with it. It's completely fitting, and it seems like after all these breakdowns, after all these hiccups, after all these new people that I've met, after all these new places I've been to, I'd say that is what this trip is about. It's more than just the burnouts, and for that reason, I'm gonna be going to H2I again next year. I'll see you guys there.